Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be a relatively short addendum to my recent Rank 3 Hood gameplay video. I had made a comment in that video about how it's possible, if you're a good player, to have the invisibility up for over half of the fight. And then I actually got an interesting comment from one of my subs. His name is Aaron A. So thanks, Aaron. I've seen you on other content creator streams and other comment sections and stuff. So active community member with a lot of knowledge. He mentioned to me that there's a way to get close to 100% uptime of the invisibility. And I was curious about this. So I had him explain it to me. And then I did a little bit of testing. And I think I have the mechanics down a little bit better now. So the reason I'm doing this video, I want to kind of look at his abilities first and tell you how this is possible. Then I'm going to show a clip of a vanilla fight just to kind of show you what it looks like in game, and then I'll do a brief discussion about the implications of this. But let's get right into it. There are two ways to activate invisibility. The first one is to dash back and hold block for 1.2 seconds. When you do this, you get an invisibility buff for 8 seconds. And then the key component here is that the cooldown timer for this is 6 seconds. So just keep those numbers in your head, that the cooldown is 2 seconds shorter than the lasting of the buff. Now, the other way to activate invisibility is to throw a special 2, and then at the end of the attack, he does like the cloak swipe thing, and then he goes invisible. So there is a way in the game, and I will say the abilities don't explicitly say this, but they also don't prohibit overlapping invisibilities, so it's a little nebulous to me. But before I go any further, I will just say that like Hood has been reworked twice. They've really looked into his abilities to try to get him right. So if this is how it's working in game now, I'm assuming that this is the intended interaction. So I'm just going to kind of leave that there. But essentially what you can do is, if you have invisibility up from the dash back and hold block version, if you throw a special attack during the actual invisibility buff, then you will activate a new invisibility and the first one will go on cooldown. But since the cooldown is 6 seconds, when that ends, you still have 2 seconds of the first invisibility, and during that 2-second window, you can hold block again, activate a new overlapping invisibility, and then once again, you're going to be able to rinse and repeat this cycle. So essentially what you're looking for, and I'm going to show a quick clip in the background, is if the active buff, the 8-second buff is open, and then there's also a 6-second cooldown timer. As soon as that passive cooldown timer ends, you can just throw down your block and activate a new invisibility, and then they're going to overlap and you don't have to worry about the cooldown. So the implications of this are a few things. Now, mine is not duped, but the interesting thing is that if they are duped, then you basically can have the uptime of stun immunity for way longer than I was showcasing in my last fights. Additionally, as his SIG goes up, he gets a power steal. So if you're invisible the whole time, you're just going to be having a lot more power steal, a lot more access to power, a lot more access to special 2s, which have a lot of utility for him. And additionally, he just has more damage when he's invisible. He has a critical damage rating increase, and he ignores some armor and block proficiency. So ignoring armor is another way to just increase attack, essentially, or to go through armor. And then the other thing is, of course, you have the ability to miss, and if you keep refreshing it every 6 seconds like that, then you get 2 new free misses, and then you can continue to load your bullets and whatnot. So I'm going to get this clip started right about now. I'm going into this quest that I always pick with the Deadpool, just because, Deadpool, he's got over 200k health, he has regen, it's an interesting damage test, but in this case, we're not really looking at many other abilities besides his regen. So I'm going to start off with a parry and just hitting. Notice I don't have any synergies. So we activate invisibility. As I mentioned in the last video, because invisibility is slightly bugged, I like to hold block just as a safety net to get the 2 bullet reloads. So we're just being a little aggressive. I'm trying to build to 2 bars of power so that when this first cooldown is over, we can activate invisibility. So we get it activated. And now we're going to take our 2 hits and throw the special 2. And now you will see we have the buff and the cooldown timer. The cooldown timer is the passive. And now as soon as this expires, I'm going to hold down block again. we activate another one, and once again we stay invisible. We have the cooldown timer and the buff once again. I'm watching that cooldown timer, hold block again, there we go, we get another overlap. So I'm using all my bullets for the hexes, but you'll notice that I'm starting to stack up the reloads. That's going to be important later, so just keep that in mind. Now we're going to throw a special 2. This is just like the first time we threw the special 2. They once again overlap, and now that I'm out of bullets, I'm going to want to detonate my hexes. So let's go back. We're going to do it one more time, hold the heavy into the phase, do a bunch of damage, and now what I'm going to do is intentionally let the timer end so that I reload my bullets. So now I'm going to have 15 bullets back. That's how many we gained from all the misses. There were no buffs in this fight, so there was no additional way to get some extra bullets, but at this point I'm pretty much going to just get him to about like 8 or 10 bullets, and then we're going to detonate it, and that will be the end of Deadpool. And there we have it. So that was an interesting fight. It was under 100 hits, so the damage was decent, and I just kind of wanted to showcase how you can have the uptime the whole time. So a couple things to note. There are a few bugs with Hood right now that I want to point out, and I'll show some clips of this in the background. There are times when basically the second miss during invisibility is supposed to have a 100% chance to miss, and currently it's not working that way. You only have one free pass on the misses, and sometimes that second one can actually not work for you. So that makes him a little less safe, because in his kit, the way it's described, he's supposed to have 2 free misses every time he activates invisibility, which is a really nice safety net. The other thing is there are a few champions in the game that have an interesting dash back and hold block mechanic. There's Falcon, and when Falcon seems to work different than everybody else. When Falcon dashes back, it doesn't matter if you dash back once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Anytime you dash back and hold block, his locked on starts to go. But there are other champions in the game like Civil Warrior and Hood and Crossbones work this way too, that if you do a double dash back, then on that second one, you're actually not going to be able to hold block and do the timer. So what ends up happening is, like, say you dex a hit and then you dash back one more time to create distance, then you can't get your invisibility or, you know, your overpower or whatever the thing for Crossbones is, or the conversion of the Furies for Civil Warrior, things like that. So you have to dash back one extra time. It feels a little clunky to me. There's also some interesting things when I'm trying to get my double invisibility. Sometimes it felt like I can just hold block without dashing back, and then I can trigger the invisibility that way. So there's definitely something that feels weird about some of these champs with the dashbacks. And the reason I say that is because, you know, we're hoping for sure that Hood does get bug fixed in terms of that second hit missing, because I think that's really important. And I would just caution people that, you know, if they're going back into his kit and making changes, that there could be some changes to this ability as well. So, you know, I wouldn't hold your breath, because it is a little bit of gray area for me if this is the way you're supposed to play him. But I will say the other thing is that in every fight, I don't think you're going to want to make this perma-invisibility like your end goal. Like, if you watch my last video with the rank 3 gameplay, I wasn't doing it this way, and because of the matchups, I was still coming out with a lot of health at the end. I was still completely controlling the fight, doing plenty of damage. You know, I was showcasing Power Shield, where his hex detonation will bypass power shields, and it was an interesting lane I took. So again, I don't think that this perma invisibility should be like your main goal when fighting with Hood, because I think you should be paying more attention to what your opponent is doing, and, you know, trying to play the node that you have and keep your hexes up, and also watch all the other timers that are going on. But if this thing does line up and you have a safe opening to re-trigger invisibility, I think it's important to know that his mechanics are working this way properly, or at least today they are, and that it's an interesting way to play him. So anyway, I hope this was somewhat enlightening. I think when I'm playing Hood, I'm going to be trying to do this as much as I can without sacrificing any sort of like unsafe play styles. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing. And again, thanks to Aaron for pointing this out. I just wanted to kind of share this with the community, because this was news to me and I thought it was pretty interesting. So thanks for checking out this video, and I will catch you in the next one.